let's talk a little bit about how your garden year starts.
Sure.
It starts about, I mean, you're planning, it's February right now, and you're starting to work on the plans for this summer's garden,
and honestly,
right?
Kristen, I'm feeling a little behind right now. I'm thinking about when I need to start my my plants, and that is in March usually. And I like to. It takes a little bit of time to do the planning, but I've been dreaming about it since the seed catalogs rolled in November.
Yeah.
And so this is just one that I use, Johnny's, but I'm also usually ordering from any number of them.
Right. Yeah.
But really the way sometimes I get ahead of myself when I'm planning, and I get right into how many row feet of this. But I then need to step back, and I always start with a map, and I do it all on Excel. And so I don't know. I find that when I get to calculating how many seeds I need or how many bed feet equals this, that, and the other thing, that Excel really helps me figure those things out. So I just make a map on Excel so I have it all in the same file. And so this is the map. Each row is I've got it all in rows, and I just block it off. So, and this doesn't have to be in Excel. A person could just draw the map and sketch it out, but that helps me figure out, okay, I've got this much space, it's concrete, the actual space, rather than some abstract thing of a spreadsheet.
Right.
So that's
so
how
it's
I
a
start.
visual picture. I mean, it's a footprint of the garden.
Yeah.
And then you also take it to a spreadsheet after that. Okay.
Yep. So then I've got each planting on here is a row in my spreadsheet. And I leave space because I print it out afterwards. I leave blank ones for the actual date planted, things like that. Okay. And so I've got a field plan.
Okay. So this is your field plan. So so you have every crop, arugula, cilantro, sassy mix, salad, and then. So you've got the crop, and then you talk about which bed it's in. Yep,
everyone's got a bed. It's days to maturity, so that I can calculate, when I'm going to get that crop, whether it's a direct seed or transplant, the spacing, the rows per bed, because when this all makes sense to me when I'm planning. Right. But then when I get out to the field and I'm like, or the field, the garden. Yeah. Right. And I am planting it, I often forget in the moment. I'm like, how many rows? So these are just a cheat sheet for me to go out there and plant with. So I'm like, 12 rows. And then I've got this calculation, which is, how many rows and spacing for how many plants per bed foot. And that is what I generate, like how many seeds to order from the catalog.
Okay, gotcha.
So it does the calculation.
And then this is how many plants you need.
Yep. And then the number of bed feet ultimately.
Okay.
And then any notes, because there's, it's not all numbers. So something here, I've got, plant at the end next to the following salad succession, or, thin at this point, thin it to 10 inches so that I can.
If there's anything special that, because you have so many different things going on that you kind of.
Yeah, this is a 15-page document, and there's, 20, 30 lines on each page, and it's too much to just keep up here.
But for someone who is doing a smaller garden, this same process would prove useful.
Oh, I think so.
Whether or not you have a lot more to keep track of, but I have, my garden's really small, but this would still prove useful to me too.
I just think do yourself a favor, and help give yourself a plan for the season that you can just follow and execute. When you've got a down moment in February or January. I know some growers the commercial growers, some do this process in December. Right. Because that's when the biggest selection of seeds are available from the seed companies. Anyway. Yeah, that makes sense. But it's sometime in the off season.
So this is your ordering and kind of planning guide. Yes. And then you go to your propagation guide.
Exactly. So all the numbers in here, then if the column that says transplant has transplant in there, then all that information goes into this propagation spreadsheet. Okay. Which tells me, sorry.
A question for you about transplant. So does this mean that if DS means that it's direct sown in the garden? Correct. And so you don't move those to this sheet?
I don't.
These are just the things that you start indoors ahead of time.
Right. Okay. I filter it so it's just the transplants.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yep. And so then you have your list of things that you're going to transplant.
Yep. And then I've got it all coordinated so that things that are being planted in the garden are tray buddies is what I call them.
Yeah.
So I've got all the things that are planted in the garden in, say, mid to late April are all in the
same
tray
tray.
number 1. All the things that are planted in mid-May are in tray number 2, so that I can take that tray out and I don't have one singleton row that's left behind to tend in
out of one tray
Yeah.
and it taking up space on your seed starting
so
stand.
the planting of it ends up which we'll get into, but when I put them out in the tray, that is staggered. So I might start out with half a tray, but then when it's done and they're mature, they're all out there at the same time.
That makes sense. That's a good tip.
But yeah, so I've got a lot of early flowers. I've got the tomatoes and peppers, all these things that I'm starting in the house. And then through the year, I do a total of 10 trays, but I only have 4 at a time. So I just sort of have it all staggered so that as soon as one tray comes out, the next one's getting seeded and filling in its space. But yeah.
So you said you have room for 10, but you only ever do 4. Oh, you do 10 total trays.
I only have room for 4, but I need to generate the transplants that I want. I have to have a total of 10
So you rotate
trays.
them in and out,
Yeah.
which is why you do the tray buddies. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so what are these dates here? Do you decide based on the information here in the field plan and the days to germination and days to maturity, you set your schedule ahead of time for your trays, right?
Yeah, so I start with the date that, I start with the date that the crop can handle.
Right.
And then I make a plan for, when it's going to be in the field. I know how many weeks it takes to, to be, to mature from a transplant, and back calculate, and then that's my seeding date.
Gotcha.
And I've got an equation in here because I had it a couple years back where it was like dates all over the calendar, where it was like a Tuesday, a Thursday, all these things, and we'd be like, oh, I missed this thing. So I just have there's a rounding equation in Excel, and I round to the Saturday before, because we're always doing the work on the weekends.
Right.
Because we have
you have full-time jobs, yes. So then you have your weekly to-do list.
Right.
And that is what this is.
Correct. And I've got everything sorted by, like I said, the Saturday, and all the things all the seed starting, that's down the basement propagation, my direct seeds out in the garden, my transplants need to go out there, and my other tasks, the miscellaneous from the notes, those things, so that I can this is my script for the season, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So this is one from a couple of years ago, I see.
Yep.
And so this is where we can see some of your notes that you wrote to yourself and kind of how things went into the garden.
Exactly.
Every week.
So yeah, I'm moving some tunnels, and in end of February, starting my first planting is 12th of March.
Okay, good. Well, we'll look forward to doing some of those things next month.
Sounds great.